anti-democratic forces in America. From the voting rights crackdowns and assorted government plots to the big lie attacks on election results that can stoke actual insurrections. Now, we know the U.S. has faced many different types of crises before, but this era has been a perfect storm of right-wing demagogues, weaponized propaganda from the internet to the Fox News defamation we covered, and this is key, the perfect storm includes a high-powered, elite-driven effort to mainstream attacks on democracy and try to write them into our rules. And that part of the effort is not, let's be clear, criminal activity like January 6th. It's not something people are going to go to jail for. It is what at least lawyers and others call arguably legal attacks that are still designed to hijack democracy from within. And this is our top story right now tonight because this brings us to efforts to bend or break current laws and rules to try to foster more anti-democratic outcomes that would be technically legal if these people get their way. I'm talking about a world where politicians pick their voters instead of the other way around. And I want to be clear. There have been times where both parties have abused certain tactics, like distorting and gerrymandering districts. And if you believe in democracy, it's wrong, period, no matter who does it. At the same time, I want to tell you what's happening. The big push right now is a specifically radical Republican effort on the right. And it's been trying to get basically what they think are their allies, the Trump fans that are on the Supreme Court. He did get 3 justices on there, along with other Republican appointees to try to endorse an attack on voting, trying to give states the kind of unreviewable authority that those 2020 coup plotters wished they had, and then distort or even override the vote if it doesn't go their way, which in this case means if it doesn't go Republican. It is a legal effort that has started to draw major warnings.
A high-stakes case on voting laws.
States have the primary authority to establish election law.
It's kind of an arcane theory.
We're going to find out if, in fact, the Constitution tells us that state legislatures are the exclusive and ultimate arbiter of election rules.
Many analysts say the outcome could potentially, quote, damage American democracy.
And that's huge.
It is huge, and it can be damaging. So let's look at how this works specifically. Take North Carolina, which went about 50% for Trump in the last election. But the state's Republican politicians abused their powers over map drawing to try to hand their own party 71% of their delegation, you see there. That's, if you count, about 40% more voting power than they won from the voters. That is a huge difference. It's self-dealing. It's distortive. It's not democratic. Now, when you look at that example, that's one of many, but that example, that effort was so brazen, judges just threw out that attempted map. Then Republicans took that appeal to the Supreme Court to try to keep the map. And also along the way, they were trying to get the endorsement of an anti-democracy theory that might allow the kind of state-driven coups I mentioned that Trump wanted in 2020. So what's the Supreme Court going to do? Well, you're watching the news. I have the news for you. Today, the Supreme Court ruled against Republicans in North Carolina, dealing a blow to these MAGA allies and opposing that type of partisan gerrymander, plus what I mentioned, the efforts to try to supersize state coup powers through this fringe theory. So that is a big deal and a big loss for them. As for the court, Republican appointee Chief Justice Roberts wrote the 6-3 ruling, joined by 2 other Republican appointees. And this comes after Roberts, who has undercut MLK's Voting Rights Act in the past, led other recent rulings that draw at least a line to protect some basic voting rights, including in southern states with a long history of racist attacks on black and brown voting rights. So here we have a ruling that fortifies some voting rights, a basic standard, and adds another rebuke to the coup plotters like Trump lawyer John Eastman, who's actually facing other setbacks this week as California considers yanking his law license. So when I tell you tonight this is a big story out of the Supreme Court, that's because it's national news. If you hadn't heard about this case that much, well, it's one of those times where, believe me, if it went the other way, you'd be hearing about it for years because it would have rewired our democracy. And so this, for some people, seems like a victory. It definitely had a bipartisan coalition. For others, it's a warning. And for others still, it's a reminder of something we've talked about on this program and heard from our experts about, that the fight for democracy in America is not something that is over, that is complete, nor is America, if we define democracy as a place where we all get to vote, a very old democracy. At best, we're a young democracy. And we need coalitions of people who are willing to fight for everyone's rights, not just some people's rights, and not just go with the elections when they like the outcome.
Win a trip for two to Miami Beach, including air, hotel, VIP tickets, and $500 gift card for the 2024 Hyundai.
Donald Trump is facing his Watergate moment, caught on tape admitting actions that could send him to prison, driving damning headlines today about how he acknowledged he had these confidential documents on the tape, and that's the heart of the case. We did know of this tape because its key parts had already been transcribed in the DOJ indictment that got Trump arraigned just 2 weeks ago today. And it detailed how Trump was at his golf club talking to a writer and people who had no security clearances, but he showed them that plan of attack, which he admitted was secret. So that's damning written evidence, but hearing the defendant on tape can be more gripping than a transcript. Richard Nixon's tapes showed that. He, of course, had previously faced all kinds of witnesses and allegations, but his real problems came with the tapes. Indeed, as one Washington Post account explained, across all of Watergate, the most sensational revelation was that Nixon had a secret taping system. When Nixon refused to release those tapes, prosecutors issued subpoenas. Tapes can change everything. And if you've been near a TV lately, you've probably seen how this actual audio broke as big news here on MSNBC last night and across the entire news ecosystem, because hearing is different. And that is what a jury will hear if this case goes to trial. They'll hear what you are about to hear right now. Trump in his own voice admitting that he has the confidential secret information, which wouldn't apply to a newspaper article or other defenses. It's Trump on tape talking secret war plans. And so now with our breakdown, here is part one of the new tape.
Well, with Milley, let me see that. I'll show you an example. He said that I wanted to attack Iran. Isn't it amazing? I have a big pile of papers. This thing just came up. Look. This was him. They presented me this. This is off the record, but they presented me this. This was him. This was the Defense Department and him. Wow. We looked at some. This was him. This wasn't done by me. This was him. All sorts of stuff. It's pages long. Look. Wait a minute. Let's see here.
Yeah.
I just now, isn't that amazing? This totally wins my case, you know. Mm-hmm. Except it is like highly confidential, secret. There's a secret information. But look at this. You attack, and
Hillary would print that out all the time, you know.
she'd send it, no, she'd send it to Anthony Weiner, the pervert. By the way, isn't that incredible?
Yeah.
I was just saying, because we were talking about it, and you know, he said he wanted to attack Iran, and what? These are the papers.
These were the papers. You can hear the shuffling. You can see what he's saying and hear everything he admits to. Now, Jack Smith is using that tape as criminal evidence, and here is how that works. We can show you tonight the basic elements of the crime is across these 3 rows, and the FBI, we know, found the illegal material in the Mar-a-Lago search. Tonight, what's new and what the jury would hear is a tape which has the audio of the criminal intent, Trump admitting he has highly confidential secret information. So the DOJ argues that the beginning of the tape, which I just played you, proves those 2 elements right there. You have the underlying evidence, you have him saying that, and then the next part shows Trump's knowledge at the time that he could have declassified it, but now he can't. So as you consider this criminal chart, this is literally how this actually works in the law, you can now hear the second part of the new tape.
This was done by the military, given to me. I think we can probably, right?
I don't know, we'll have to see. Yeah, we'll have to try to
Declassify.
figure out a yeah.
See, as president, I could have declassified it. Now I can't, you know, but this is classified.
Now we have a problem.
Isn't that interesting?
Yeah.
It's so cool. I mean, it's so, we here and I have, and you probably almost didn't believe me, but now you believe me.
No, I believe
It's
you.
incredible, right?
No,
Hey, bring some Cokes in, please.
No, it is classified. You hear him saying it's basically too late to declassify because he doesn't have that legal authority anymore, and he didn't exercise it when he did. So again, with the legal chart, the lower right corner, did the defendant willfully do it, right? Not some honest mistake or mix-up where you don't have the right mental intent. This is what completes the required elements of the crime. The DOJ arguing that Trump shows on tape that he knew, that the confession there is, as president, I could have declassified it, now I can't. A confession is one of the most damning ways to show that the defendant knew something. That is why all of this is called criminal intent. So the tape is a key path to getting an Espionage Act conviction. Now, juries are instructed to weigh the facts, not spin, not grievances, not the whataboutism where somebody says, hey, other people did this. In politics, you hear that all the time, but you can't tell a jury you did it, but so did other people, and they should go after those other people, because the jury is under strict instructions under the force of law to only assess the facts about you, what you did, your criminal intent. Indeed, there's reporting out there that this tape was a key driver for those nonpartisan prosecutors to decide that this was not some storage mix-up, that there was the deliberate crime, and one where they had the proof that the defendant was knowingly, intentionally, deliberately committing that crime. Jack Smith is ready to prove up all of this with the tape and other supporting material, corroboration from the people who were in that room, who may add visual and other details well beyond the audio. Smith got his hands on it. And, well, someone else is presumably out there leaking it now because it's out there. This is what the evidence sounds like. Andre.
Did you know that you could get $50,000 to over $150,000 of investment?
Andre Kozyrev was Russia's foreign minister under Boris Yeltsin. You can see him there, the last elected leader before Putin. He has been critical of this current regime and is the author of The Firebird, The Elusive Fate of Russian Democracy. Appreciate you making time for us. Again, how are you? Yeah.
Thank you. So looking to Moscow and looking to what happens